What's happening, my friend? How are you?
Hey, Travis. I'm good. Hey, everybody.
I have to apologize to you in advance. Here we are together again in the studio, closed room, but I did have Indian food last night.
Wow. We could have told me that before we started.
Now that I've locked you in the room here.
Yeah, we are in the podcast studio, so this is so awesome.
So how you feeling today? You looking good?
Good. I went to my oral surgeon yesterday to get a checkup on last week's oral surgery. So for everybody that's on pins and needles wondering how I'm doing with this, his diagnosis yesterday after taking a quick look at my mouth was everything's good. He's a genius. So.
But you have to go back, right? Don't you have more work to do?
I'll go back in 8 weeks for him to take a check, to really take some x-rays and make sure that everything is healed. And then we'll start working on making the wooden tooth and then actually getting it installed, which will happen at my dentist's office. So I have one more visit with my oral surgeon to make sure that the post he put in is set in concrete in my mouth correctly, and then a few more, 2 or 3 appointments with my dentist, and I'll have my third and final, hopefully, wooden tooth.
You know how when you make a decision to put gold in your mouth, I mean, that's actually a very good investment strategy. You're thinking long-term for your retirement. So when you make the decision to transition to wood, do you think about, is it oak? Is it something that is going to last? What do you think?
Yeah, well, you want to use a hardwood.
Right. So what are you going for?
So, I mean, oak is oak a hardwood?
I think it is,
so.
yeah.
I don't know. I like walnut. Just to make it clear for new listeners, which, by the way, Michelle in my oral surgeon's office got the podcast information yesterday, and she's a fellow loyal liberal Democrat. So,
did you make sure you vetted that out before you gave her the podcast info? Because you don't want her to be on my side and then be drilling into your head.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm very careful. I mean, typically I don't tell anybody
right
that I'm having personal, repeated face-to-face contact with. But, I've been to this office 8 times. I haven't had the same. It's a big office. They have a lot of staff, and I haven't seen the same person twice.
Was it like the Kaiser of dentist offices?
No, it's a really, it's an oral surgeon. It's 2 oral surgeons sharing the same office space. It's a super nice office space. It's in the Fullerton area, and it's really, I think it's the best of the best. I mean, it's by far and away the best doctor's office of any kind I've ever been in. So, really instills a lot of confidence in you. It's a well-run office, well-run office, well-run drill. That's what
you're looking for when someone's drilling into you.
Yeah, and my dentist office is a little more. It's very nice, and but it's small. It's one dentist, and she's got a couple of office people, and they double as office people and assistants, and that's very nice too. It's more traditional, right? This is more new age. He sees a lot of. I have no idea how many people he sees because. Like when he did the oral surgery, that was a couple of hours.
Well, what do you mean it's new age? What's new age about it?
He did he did the interior design,
so it looks modern and clean. Is that what you mean?
Like the podcast studio, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's got good white. There are no sharp corners in the office.
It's good juju.
Good juju,
right?
Yeah.
Feng shui. It's supposed to have a calming effect, right? When you go into any, a lot of people have anxiety about the doctor, the dentist. They just freak out. Do they still take your blood pressure when you go to the dentist?
Nobody has done that for a while. I'm pretty sure we did blood pressure last week or the week before last when we did the surgery before because, they want to make sure before they cut into your gum, it's not going to squirt out like
on the wall.
Geyser. Yeah.
Like a zit.
Hey, you're 200 over 150. That's not going to be good. They did. But, typically not. And my dentist doesn't take my blood pressure ever. That I'm aware of.
I don't think it. Do you think it's a factor anymore? Because I recently had a online doctor, I guess, visit. Right? What do you call it? Telemed, something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And they weren't, because of this COVID bullshit, taking me in. So I got pretty quickly a Zoom telemed conference with the doctor. But right before I got on, they said, hey, make sure you have the ability to take your temperature and your blood pressure. And I had the thermometer, but I didn't have the blood pressure cuff.
You don't have a blood pressure
No,
thing?
and I said, hey, I don't have that. Can we still do the appointment? And they took me anyway. But it turned out it was no big deal. Literally, he's like, oh, we don't need that. I'm like, well, what if I really actually needed it?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess it depends what kind of appointment you had. I had, it's been a little while now, so I had an appointment with my regular doctor on video, right? I had an option. Hey, do you want to come in? Do you want to do a video? And I'm like, is that an option? I haven't seen him since a year ago, January. And he's like, they're like, yeah, you can do a video thing. So there was nothing, right? Didn't take the weight, didn't do the blood pressure.
And you did that just because you didn't want to drive?
I just wanted to get my prescriptions renewed, right?
Are you still screening your doctors based on their hand size?
No. Just my presidents. Yeah, so really, I talked to him. I said, hey, everything's good. You can see I look great. And he's like, yeah, you look fine. He's much older than I am. He's well into his 70s.
They didn't make you run in place or anything like that?
No. It was really just like, hey, I'm going to send orders for you because we hadn't done a blood panel. So there's really not much he's going to tell me about anything without a blood panel. So, but I was coming my pharmacy had started calling him. Right, had started telling me, "Hey, we can't refill your prescriptions."
And we know how you are about filling your prescriptions on time.
That's right. So I said, "Well," and I just switched the pharmacy, so I got that all set up. Then I go into the pharmacy recently, this month, I guess, around the 20th or something, and they're all screwed up on my prescriptions. They're like, "Oh, we can't get a hold of your doctor," and this and that. And I'm like, "Listen, I just had a video appointment with him where he re-upped all my prescriptions. So what are you guys not doing right? Why am I coming in here to pick up 2 out of my multiple prescriptions, at a time ago? I'm busy. I don't have time.
Do they give those to you? Does the doctor give you on your teleconference a copy of the prescriptions, or they just go right to the pharmacy?
You call them into the pharmacy.
So you don't really have the proof that wouldn't you like to have a copy of that?
Yeah, you know what happened on this video call? He just said, so I think maybe I was supposed to have them have the pharmacy call him, get with him before they tried to reach. So it was supposed to, pharmacies all want to set this up on automatic stuff where they just send you a text message and then you come and pick up your stuff. So it's minimal work for them and minimal contact. And that's what I was getting pissed about at the pharmacy, because I'm like, what you called me and said my prescriptions already. You got 2. That's not anywhere close to how many I need to pick up.
It's like your Amazon order. You order like 5 things and it says it'll be all delivered in 2 days, and they start to trickle in one at a time. Yeah. You're like, that's not the deal.
I don't want that. That's what I told her. I go, listen, I think this is what is this, CVS? I just switched it from a different pharmacy, and I'm like, so I kind of gave the gal at the counter a little bit of trouble, and I'm like, listen,
no, not you.
I know this. Yeah, no, it's not the answer I'm looking for.
Did you demand to know why? Why?
Well, I kind of did. I'm like, listen, this is how it's supposed to work. I give you my prescriptions, so you get them from my doctor, and then you fill them once a month, all at the same time. You send me a text, I come and pick them up, and that's it. And I go, all the rest of this is not working for me.
Let me ask you a question. Would you prefer that somebody give you the same level of pushback or attitude that you give them? Like, when you kicked out of the pool in Hawaii and you said, fuck you and bring the front desk to me and all that shit. If someone gave it back, would you have a little bit more respect? Is that what you're looking for, a little bit more of a fight?
No.
You want them to just bend over and do what you say?
I'm looking for people to do what they're supposed to do. I'm sick of the shit. Yeah. And it's kind of always been this way. Travis, we've been in business, you've been in business your whole life. I've been in business my whole life. The lifelines are longer. But there came a point after taking shit from customers. I've had plenty of people push back on me about stuff that, so it's kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, listen, and here's the thing that really drives me crazy. When they won't fix the problem and they just say, well, that's not our policy. That drives me crazy. That's why I will not go to Disneyland anymore, because everything.
They won't let you walk in barefoot?
Well, everything is their policy. That's the only reason they have it.
But that's how the world, and that's actually, a lot of the shit I complain about this country and the government, because everything's their policy. Nobody's listening to anybody. Nobody gives a shit what you say or what you think. They just want to do what they're told. Like the other day, you and I, we went to dinner. We were out in public, because the COVID is over. And we were out, we were mingling.
As far as you know, it's over.
As far as I'm declaring.
Yeah.
And unless you're in India, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, we had a large party, and they wouldn't seat us. We don't want to say any names here, but they wouldn't seat us until the entire party was there, which was significantly late. And you wanted to know why the rest of us couldn't sit down. And they basically told you, well, because that's our policy. They gave you some bullshit about COVID and safety. And then, but I could tell you were right on the edge of, let me push this a little further. Let me pull the old Hawaii pool drill here.
I asked why. So why can't the four of us sit down before the other six of us get here? There's nobody in the answer was, borderline acceptable, right? We're trying to limit the number of people coming in and out.
Because that does what? It is nothing.
Yeah, it was kind of nonsense. So we're not saying the name of the restaurant chain, but send me an email. I'll tell you who it is.
But that was the answer. We're trying to limit the amount of people that come in here to slow the spread, whatever.
But guess what? We found out, right? And the way they took us into that space, because it was outdoors patio thing, was through a gate. So we
could have gone there anyway. We were not wearing masks to eat.
That was borderline. That was borderline. But if it was my money, I wasn't paying for that dinner. So had it been, and here's the thing, the point I'd like to make. Yes, I get it that my attitude about this stuff does remind you of some of your attitude about COVID.
I appreciate it.
But here's the thing. The difference for me is I expect and can accept that answer from government entities.
Why would you accept it from them?
Well, because although I am paying them through my taxes, it's not the same transactional relationship that I have with a fucking restaurant.
Yeah, but government isn't real. Government is people.
Well, it's
like Soylent Green is made of people.
For the people that you interact with the government to give you those stock answers, the thing is they really aren't in control. But if it's Disneyland or a Disneyland employee giving you that shit, then Disneyland is fucking that up. And they're not giving their people the right information to answer objections to their stupid ass policies.
Maybe that's on purpose.
That I'm paying through the nose for.
And maybe that's by design. I don't know. But if you think about, the number of employees, say, at a restaurant or Disneyland, they're going to have to come in contact with people like you who give them shit about why they can't have their seat. Maybe they don't want the employees to have a back and forth. They just want to repeat the company line.
I'm going to give you one more quick Hawaii story that I haven't told you about. Well, you know what? I think I'm going to refrain. Now that I think we bought something I was going to do more detail.
Yeah.
Don't need all the detail.
I think I know what you're talking about.
We're going to buy something, and then once it was purchased, that evening, there was some question about whether it was authentic. You got to watch yourself in Hawaii. It's not Disneyland, which I've already shit talked here, but it's not Disneyland, and so it's kind of ripe for unscrupulous merchants. So you got to be careful. And
you talking blood diamonds here? Something like that.
So some jewelry stuff. And anyway, weren't sure. And so go back to the store the very next day, same guy, and immediately he says, we're like, hey, we just want to return these. Right? And he's like, no returns. All sales are final. And then then I got involved. I'm like, there's no such thing.
my junior attorney skills are rubbing off on you.
I just like, hey, I go, listen, if they want their money back, you damn well better give them their money back. And he's like, no, it's our policy, right? So all the wrong answers.
Was this the same actual dude from the day before?
I think so. There might be some disagreement about that, and I don't want to say anything on air that would be offensive, but I believe it was. And whether it was or it wasn't, I don't really care because it's the same store, right?
Were you there the day before?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, but Anyway, it got heated, right? And finally the guy, well, I just kept pressing him. I'm like, what is the possible reason? I'm not the owner. I can't, so he couldn't do it because he's not the owner, right? And so much like my thing in the pool, which was only a few days before that, although that was on a different island, I said, well, get the fucking owner down here, right? Because I told him this. I said, listen, if you don't give them their money back, I'm going to stay here all day and stand out front. And
shoo off all your customers.
Another person's going to come in this store the rest of this day. So I guarantee you that's going to cost you more than just giving us a refund. So, Did
he do it?
No, my wife. So here's the thing. He was caught in a lie. So he was supposed to be an authorized dealer. He had signs up in the store that said authorized dealer. The reason why I was getting so pissed is we already knew he wasn't an authorized dealer. We had checked before we came to see who were the authorized dealers for this particular merchandise on this island, and he was not one of them, although he had the signs up and everything. And so the question was, is this stuff authentic? And he's pointing to the signs, on his cabinetry and stuff. And I'm like, look, I get you were a dealer, but you're not,
stole the sign.
But you're not now. Right, you lost a dealership, which just says to me, you did something underhanded.
You've done this before.
Yeah. So finally, the truth came out. We were a dealer. We just recently lost a dealership. We're going to get it back. And I said, well, you don't have it back now. So eventually, we went to the actual authorized dealer after that, and they did verify that the merchandise we had was actually authentic, so it all's well.
So you got what you paid for, and you didn't have to return it.
Well, here's the thing: because of where we were going, I was going to have to pass by this shop again on the way home. So it was nothing. It was no sweat off my, to go by the authorized dealer and find out for sure if this merchandise was if it was legitimate. It's fine. I wasn't arguing about the price or did we overpay or anything like that. Just hey, if it's not legitimate, I want the money back. That was the other one. So it's a lot for my wife. Debbie, bless her heart, does not like confrontation of any kind.
Is she seeing more of this out of you? Has she commented that, are you, because the irritability scale, I think, has gone up a little bit, and maybe that's, COVID driven, but in general, has she made any comments to you?
It's old age driven.
No, I know it was started before this.
It's grumpy old man. That's her comment. She goes, listen, you're turning into a grumpy old man. And then my reply to that is, get off my lawn.
I like it, though, because, usually grumpy old people in general become more conservative as they get older, and so that is only going to help you.
Is that happening? I don't know.
I think so.
I don't know. Let's talk about something political.
You put up a good fight. Well, I was going to ask you, you made a comment earlier about your feng shui dentist office and how it gave you confidence, and that word stuck with me, so we have a big milestone, I guess, or millstone, as Biden says.
Gallstone.
Does he have? Can we say? Is it dementia? Is it Alzheimer's? What's the difference? He has something. Come on, it's not this fucking stutter that everybody likes to talk about.
Well, of course it is.
He has that plus whatever else he has.
Oh my God, I have no information, Travis. Much to your chagrin, I'm sure that.
But what do you think it is? He has some ailment. Like a lot of old people, right? It's you. The other day, I think you said, I'm having an old person moment, and it was a name or something you couldn't think of. Shit, I'm in my 40s, and I have that.
Senior moment.
Moment.
I think that's all he has. I don't think, and be suffering from that myself at the ripe young age of 64, I got to give him a break for that.
Well, listen, of course. I mean, he's, 78? I'm not, I see you're staring at the screen here. What I have up here.
Things are moving on the screen,
but still,
this is going to be a Biden bashing episode.
I was reading. Right, okay, so I have on the screen here this article. By the way, and I wasn't even going to bring it up. I just happened to be reading it when you came in.
Oh, okay, good.
But this is from, what does it say? The Washington Post. The false and misleading claims President Biden made during his first 100 days in office.
Where does this say Washington Post?
This is
up at the
from the
top?
website.
Oh, okay.
But this is what I was going to say to you. The big millstone is the 100 days, when he's supposed to give some speech, right? It's not technically a State of the Union, but it's a joint session of Congress, which, whatever, same freaking thing.
Yeah. It's funny. I listened on the way here to the news guy on an NPR station, a podcast, talk about that. He's like, okay, so this is there's an address this time of year every year, and
right.
when it comes shortly after the inauguration of a new president, they don't call it State of the Nation. And he says because they think maybe the newly inaugurated president doesn't really know and fully understand the State of the Nation.
It's so dumb.
But it just call it an address or something. But it has all the same rules and trappings of a State of the Union.
And the same guest list, right? I mean, it's both the houses of Congress.
Right.
It's, distinguished guests. It's all the
it's gonna be
same fluffing and blowjobbing that they all do.
It's going to be limited on guests, I guess.
Well, this year, because they have to keep up the narrative.
Yeah, that's right, the COVID. So
there was, and, I have a bunch of things I wanted to talk to you about. We'll see if we get there, but I mean, it really is the narrative, And that Biden, I think last week or the week before, he was involved in some global climate summit somewhere. I think it was remote because
it was
a lot of what I saw. He's on Zoom with all these other world leaders, and there's whatever it is, 9, 10, 11, 12 world leaders, and
that was a lot, I think.
Yeah, a lot. But the screenshot I saw, he's the only fucking guy in a room by himself on a Zoom call with a mask on. What the fuck is that?
He probably wasn't by himself, and I'm surprised you're missing the ability to open and then walk through this door. Do you think he was running the Zoom call by himself? Don't you think there were tech? Don't you think he had aides and assistants?
Absolutely.
In there? Well, that's why he's got the mask on.
But they're sitting 100 feet away. There was another interview with the co-president. The co-president did an interview with CNN. That's not vice president anymore. It's co-president. Co-president Harris.
Co-pilot.
Yeah, co-pilot. She was doing an interview, I think, with CNN. I don't even know what it was about. And so they were literally in a room 20 feet away. Mm-hmm. 20 feet away. This is like on the day or right before the CDC now says social distancing should be down to 3 feet, not 6 feet. They're 20 feet away, and they've been vaccinated. What the fuck is the point of that? Why keep up the narrative?
Well,
why is that important? Why is the mind control is at an all-time high? This is Disneyland on steroids.
I'm just going to give you all of that. I think I think that it is just to set the example. I think that's all it is. So you can go to the extreme and call it mind control, although I think probably some of the Soviet experimental subjects that went through mind control might disagree that
it's like when you say something
control.
about the Holocaust, actual comparing something to the Holocaust, actual Holocaust people.
Yes, this can only be bad.
No, they rightfully so get so offended because nothing, of course, can compare to that. So what you're saying is actual mind control victims would be offended. Yeah,
by that comparison. So.
But I mean, this is the party of the science.
Wow, that was touchy. I didn't know where you're going.
No, I'm smooth, dude. Okay, I know how to get through that. But this is the party of science and all that stuff, and we're kind of past that, right? I mean,
we're going to be past it pretty soon. I mean, I think here's the thing, and everybody's well aware of our two different takes on the COVID, but for me, I found myself.
I did appreciate, by the way. I don't want to. Yeah. I don't even know if you did this. You and I were on another call, work related, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and you said the Covida. I was so proud of you.
I did it on purpose. I'm glad you caught that.
I did. Yes, thank you.
I almost fucked it up the other night at dinner too.
No, that was good.
So I was about to reference our guest from our comedian guest from
Jeremiah,
Canada. Right?
Did you buy his book, by the way?
Not yet. No.
I did buy it.
Did you?
Yeah,
oh, okay, good.
I haven't read it yet.
Can I borrow it and spill coffee on it?
Yes,
so
you can.
Keep it forever.
Yeah. Let me get some cigar smoke into it, then I'll give it to you.
No, I'll buy it because I owe him that. I think. That's
I think
the
so.
least we can do. So, well, that's good because now I'm glad we went on there because now I forgot what I was going to tell you. So, no, I forgot.
Senior moment, Mr. Biden.
I'm
Watkins.
Fascinated by this.
Well, okay, you keep referencing what I have on the screen here, and again, what is just interesting. So this is from the Washington Post. These false and misleading claims. And they do this with every president, right? It's like the fact checking. Mm-hmm. So I'll send you this link later because you always, want to make sure that I.
What are these revelations that they're referencing here?
There's not a huge list of revelations other than there's some comparisons to Trump and the number of false and misleading claims. This stage of the presidency, overall, they're down. Biden's false and misleading claims are down compared to Trump, and that's for a variety of reasons, least of which is the fact that maybe he's a little bit more truthful.
We should do a year-over-year comparison, through the 4 years. So how many patently false lies has compared to how many patently false lies has Biden made compared to President Trump at the 100-day mark? I mean, it'll be 4,000 for Trump, and it'll be 3 for.
Actually,
for
that is in this article, and I will send this to you. But it's like he's at like 37% of the amount of false and misleading claims as Trump. But the number one reason for that is, the number 2 reason for that. I'll give you this. The
Okay.
number 2 reason is because he's not as out there as much. He hasn't done as many speeches, and Twitter is the single biggest one because Trump, that was his platform, right? I mean, he was tweeting at 3:00 in the morning. And
what's the number one reason? Could it be that Trump is a pathological liar and Biden might make the occasional misstatement?
I just said that. I think Biden is more truthful, or he attempts to be. I think there's a combination with Biden. This is me personally. He says some things that are not true because all political parties try to spin whatever their agenda is. And Biden is the head currently of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So he reads his talking points paper every morning like you, and he's saying things that aren't true. But the other part of sometimes he forgets shit. Like he might make a claim that, I've been in the Senate for 500 years. Well, we know that that's not true. It's just that he's old and said the wrong number. But some of the things he's saying are untrue. So you want to know, you can read this later, but the single biggest revelation you asked me in this article is about the Georgia election laws. And that he repeated, I think, 3 times that...
that they shorten the hours?
That they shorten the hours.
Is that it?
Which they didn't. And early access was increased, not decreased.
Oh, my God. Is that the biggest false thing he said in this article?
I think so, yeah.
Then this is wimpy. Send it to me anyway.
I will send it to you. But nonetheless, here's a guy who, again, knee-jerk reaction like all these Democrats did, and repeated shit just because it sounded good. They were repeating the narrative.
Oh, my God. I think the difference would be that the lies that Trump told were he told purposely.
Yeah, he told purposely.
He knew they were lies when he said them. He was lying. Making a statement that turns out to be, especially misleading. That's a different term. That's not the same thing as telling a lie.
That's true, or is it?
We'll let the listener pump.
And that's true too. A lot of times when you read these fact-checking articles, they say things like, true but misleading or whatever. And so, I think with Trump, part of it is he just didn't really know a lot, right? I mean, he's not necessarily a bright guy, so he would say shit that to him, it's like, if you said it, you're a buddy at the poker table, right? He'll believe anything you say. Like, I can hit a golf ball 400 yards, man. It's like, does he just believe that? I don't know. Is he saying it to mislead and deliberately lie, or does he just believe that shit?
Trump, most of his lies had an underlying purpose, which was to undermine the whole idea of what's true and what's not true, so that he could then later make false claims, tell lies, and then point out that it's you can't trust anything. So many things are false because he spent 4 years telling 40,000 different lies to use as backup for his claim that there's a lot of misinformation out there.
So how much of that do you think?
All of it. I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
How much of that did he do on purpose?
No.
Okay,
what I was going to ask is how much of that do you think evolved over the 4 years? In other words, because from my perspective, I remember early on, a lot of what he was claiming is, hey, I'm not getting a fair shot in the press. All of what you're seeing and hearing about me is negative. There are some good things, and they're just not putting it out there. So then that was the whole that was, I think, the origins of the claims that it's the fake news, and they're printing lies about me. And then it turned out, the lies and the lies continued to grow. So do you see it as an evolution, or do you think it was the same level of bullshit from the very beginning?
I think it was a plan. I think misinformation is the way he's conducted his business career prior to this foray into politics. And it has worked for him at times in the past in both lawsuits and business practices, and then his different struggles with the press over the years, having to do with his, various, foul, racist real estate practices and different things over the years. His let's just start with one thing. His birtherism claims, right? That is solely based on say it enough times, get it into the press enough times, some amount of people are going to believe it. And so that's just what he does. That's what he did the whole time. It's one thing for some let's see, how denigrating can I be here? It's one thing for some low-level, unscrupulous real estate piece of crap in New York to employ that as a way to further his business goals in New York City, and it's another thing when the President of the United States does
So do you think he had enough success with that during his business career that he deliberately tried to use that tactic in politics?
100%. Yes, absolutely.
I think you're giving him too much credit.
Well, we'll see.
Why are you so, I mean, I'm not interested in relitigating the Georgia election laws here today on the Couch Funeral podcast, but why are you so quick to dismiss this?
Noted. Go ahead.
Why are you so quick to dismiss the revelation, though, about the misleading claims that Biden made about that particular election law? I mean, that's a big deal, right? I mean, it was a huge narrative. We talked about the Boarfest of baseball, pulling out of Georgia, and I made sure, by the way, that you had your Coca-Cola the other day. You weren't in full boycott mode, but no. It was a whole. I mean, it turned into the cancel war of Georgia, and here you have the American president who had a knee-jerk reaction, and he was saying shit that wasn't true.
Well, if this Biden statement that he made 3 whole times. Regarding Georgia shortening election, polling hours or something, turns out to be false. I know nothing about it. I don't know the history. I don't know what might have led him to think that. And, along with all the other crap that they've done in Georgia and all the other state governments that have passed or in the process have passed or in the process of passing so many horrendous voter suppression type laws, I don't think it's important. So I get that they're looking for a story here.
Maybe not important, but the way I see it is it's an illustration of just partisan politics that we were hoping Biden would rise above.
Oh my God.
Come on. Right? He's supposed to be the unifier.
Do you know how sad it is for me to watch conservatives glom on to these extremely minor misstatements?
Why are you watching conservatives? Are you?
I always watch them because they're dangerous. I just think it's sad. I mean, I think it's and really the fact that and not you personally, Travis.
I can take it.
The fact that conservative media or conservatives or Trumpsters or whatever you want to call them let Trump get away with this shit for 4 years, and then 100 days into Biden's campaign. And I think you're doing this as a joke, and maybe you were just reading this when I came in.
I was, because, by the way, I'll let you finish that point.
I see the other subjects up there.
There's another article. You see my YouTube. I was watching some John Danaher here. But
physicist Stephen Conant. Look, don't virtue signal to me that you're watching a physicist on YouTube.
No, I was watching some De La Riva Guard on YouTube. But this is another article that is about a physicist who just wrote a book on climate change, and so I was literally reading this article, and I won't plug it because his book hasn't even come out yet. I think it comes out next week, but I did pre-order it, so I will give you a full report on that.
Very good.
But I was just killing the time waiting for you this morning. Right. So
is he a climate change denier or something?
No. So I got it pulled up. What does it say this guy's name is? Physicist Stephen Koonin, something like that.
For me.
and apparently he has just written a book. I think it's called Unsettled. Hasn't come out yet, so I don't know. Again, I'll give you a full report afterwards. But what this article is saying is he's certainly not a denier, but he's calling into question the mainstream media's narrative on climate change. He's saying things like, I think the biggest point of this article that I read, and I'll be curious to see how he makes his case in the book, which, by the way, this is the kind of shit that we encourage people to do. Think for yourself. Seek out the answers. Here's a guy that, according to the Wall Street Journal, is this physicist. I don't know him from Adam. He's making some claims. I'll read his book, see what he has to say, and if it's bullshit, I'll call it out as bullshit. But the long and the short of it is what this article is saying.
Wall Street Journal, not the most down the middle publication there is.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
But what he is saying, this article is saying about him anyway, and this book is, he's calling into question a lot of the mainstream media's narrative on climate change, because a lot of the examples and the modeling is bad. So the idea that the storms are far worse, that the summer temperatures are far hotter, that the ice sheets are melting at a faster rate than they were at say 80 years ago. He's basically calling all that into question and saying all of that is happening. I see what you see, but you can't use that and cite that as an example of how humans are accelerating that. And one of the points he makes about, say, hurricanes and things is there's a lot of talk about the force of the hurricanes are greater and the frequency is higher than they were a few years ago. He says you can't use modeling for shit that has already happened to say things are getting worse. In other words, you can't report on these hurricanes that have already come your way and say, this is the modeling said this was going to happen because humans are contributing to this.
I'd like to say something about that for our listeners to understand that both Travis and I have a fair amount of experience at this point with this term modeling.
No doubt.
Right? And so I don't want to get into too much detail, but I don't think either of us have much faith in the results of what scientists like to refer to as modeling. So computer modeling, to be specific, and that is where you take factors from past events and put them into a computer and then try to model what future events will be. And the science on that particular practice is pretty flawed.
Yeah.
Right? And the factors that go into modeling are too subjective to use it as evidence for things that haven't happened yet. I think that would sum it up, right?
You said it way better than I said it, and that's exactly right. And I think it's like the old school science projects. When you're a kid and you're in school and you have this hypothesis and now you have to prove it. With this modeling, you already have an agenda. You already have a point you're trying to get to, and then everything you put into the model is an attempt to prove that. And like you just said, the input skews, I think, the process.
Yeah, we have to be careful all the way around. One of our recent conversations had to do with the lack of investigation by the FBI into, I'm going to try to get the name right here this time, Kavanaugh, Justice Kavanaugh.
You got it right.
Now Justice Kavanaugh. This has nothing to do with modeling, but it does have to do with modeling is a type of investigation or science to try to determine something that's not overtly obvious. And in the case of Justice Kavanaugh, my point was that they engaged in this bad science that we're talking about here, where you already have an outcome and you carve the investigation in a certain way to come to that outcome, right? The people involved in that, the people that set the parameters for that investigation, did not want a bad outcome for Kavanaugh. And so the restrictions they put on the FBI investigation of the allegations made about Kavanaugh did not want there to be any bad ending to that for Kavanaugh. So that's what they got. And that's what we have to be careful of, I think, when Travis is talking about climate change, computer modeling. If the people controlling the inputs into the modeling skew the inputs a certain way, they can get to the conclusions that they want, and that's why we have to be careful. So I have no idea whether that's happening or not happening. So I'm sure there are people that think that that's happening. So I'll read this guy's article. Maybe you're going to send this whole thing to me.
Well, like I said, I ordered the book, so I'll read that. And again, I think it's worth just looking at it from all angles. And unlike some people, I wouldn't read a book like that to try to, find proof that shit isn't real. Because it is real. And like we've talked about on the podcast, there is a group of people, probably largely made up by conservatives, Republicans who are climate change deniers, and they think, it's all a hoax. I'm certainly not one of those people. I've always said, hey, listen, the question isn't whether or not it's happening. The question is, what can we do about it? And the question really isn't whether humans are causing it. I think that's a waste of time to focus on that question because, I've said as well, the human race is not guaranteed, right? We don't have a guaranteed future to be on this rock. And so, if we want to preserve that for the next generation and, the next generation, clearly things are changing. And how are we going to do that? We can either get off this rock, which we're attempting to do, find places like Mars and whatever else.
You're going to have a hard time visiting your grandchildren on Mars.
Yeah, I mean, maybe shit like that in the future, several hundred years from now, you never know. But the reality is, we're finite, and we got to do what we can do now. So what I always get pissed off about is the politics of it. And I get pissed off when politicians who are not doers, they, with a stroke of a pen, say things like Newsom did here in California, no gas-powered vehicles sold into the state in 2035. Biden, we were just talking about this climate summit, committing that the U.S. is going to reduce
emission levels by 50% from 2005 levels.
By what? And to finish that point, by what, 2035 or something like that?
2030.
2030.
By the end of the decade.
So hang on, let's do the math.
9 years.
It's 2000. Okay, so you beat me to it. You're faster than me. It's 2021.
Yep.
And if we're going to subtract that from 2030, we get 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually. Most of the time, I don't know.
So how are we going to, that all sounds great, right? But the point is, how the hell are we going to do that? Do we have the technology to do that? Where is that coming from? And I really do believe technology like airplanes and automobiles, and I've said this to you before, I would gladly switch over to something that is less damaging to the planet if it got me what I needed. And I've referenced things like distance traveled and payloads and things like that, but we're not there with the stroke of a pen. So what does he know? What does he have at his fingertips that says we can do this in 9 years?
He may have more than we have. I don't have the answer to that, but he is the president, so he is privy to some information we don't have. Plus, part of that,
maybe he still thinks it's like 1978. So in his mind, he has more time to get this done.
Well, oh my God!
No,
the constant push to establish some kind of dementia for the president of the United States. So I think that a large part of that is to set a goal, right? It's goal setting, and listen, if President Kennedy had said, "Hey, by the end of this decade, we're going to try to get to the moon, maybe if it's not too hard," that was never going to happen. That was never. We wouldn't have gotten there. Now, whether we should have got there, we shouldn't, or whether it's a hoax or whatever, I don't care.
Wait. So no, that's a good point. But are you saying that? Because we did that, right? He declared by the end of the decade we'd put a man on the moon. Was the statement, and we did it in July of '69.
Yeah.
So, are you saying that he knew we were going to do that, or because he set the goal that was so audacious that it was met because the president challenged them?
We don't do these things because they're easy. We do these things because they're hot. Okay, that's it. That's my.
That's your good act. That was almost a little Bernie-esque at the end there.
I suck. If I do any accent longer than 20 seconds, then it becomes Hindu, and that's very offensive. So,
why is it offensive?
Because if you're Hindu, you're not going to like it.
Why? If it sounds like that.
I know. Well, because
that's so bullshit
the English
too.
guy is not Hindu, right? Everybody doesn't sound like Babu at the quickie.
Yeah, but you're not.
in
But
The
here's
Simpsons.
I gotta that shit makes me so fucking mental because if you were to do that,
Oh, folks, we found the button.
you're not doing it because you're making fun of those people.
No, I'm doing it because I suck at impersonations.
What's the thing when you dress a certain way? Like what do they call it? Racial appropriation or something?
Yes. Yeah.
So like if you go
cultural.
that's it. Cultural appropriation.
Just
And you get, white people get shit if they braid their hair a certain way or whatever. But
whenever you wear long, big, round earrings, that's very offensive
these
to black
fucking
women.
people can't just shut up with your fucking opinions.
Oh my God!
You actually go to places around the world. I mean, if you go to visit African tribes, they dress you in that attire. Is that cultural appropriation? It's fucking maniacs.
Well, you're in South Africa. Doing business with the South African economy, and they make you wear big round hoop earrings. I think that's different than you wearing them to the nightclub downtown LA.
Why? What if I don't take it off? What if I don't take off the garb? What if I'm taking pictures in the traditional garb they put me in?
Yeah, well, that's fine in South Africa, but
what if I take it home and say, "Look at this gift I was given,"
and then wear it to the club?
Yeah, well, why not? They gave it to me. The Khoisan tribe gave it to me, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, on this climate thing, though, again, it's where politics intersects innovation, and that's what I want to be removed from the process. And I really do believe, for the most part, people would get on board and choose the right thing, except for you, who puts up a fight about your paper straw still. I don't know if you...
We were at a restaurant, was it night before last?
I think
right?
so, yeah.
In our homeland area.
In the land of the green zone.
Yeah, like here in, this was in North Orange County, but, where they actually gave us paper straws, which I don't see that much here in Southern California. If you go to Maui, which I've talked about, every straw you get will be paper. And it's a flashback to a sucky thing from my childhood. And most of you guys are probably not old enough to remember paper straws as a kid, but that used to be all we had. There were no plastic straws. They were all waxy straws made out of cardboard or something.
You know how you can get around that?
How?
Drink wine like I did. You don't have to drink, out of you drink Coca-Cola out of your paper straw.
If you drink wine out of a straw, you get there faster. That's all I can tell you.
Well, let me finish my point on
All
this
right,
climate thing. It's, for example, when you have, the American president making declarations about the commitments that we're going to make, and remember, we rejoined the Paris Climate Accord and all that. These things look good on paper, but are we actually doing anything? And the point I always make is Americans in general, I think, are guilty of thinking America is the world, right? We think that way with the way we tell people what to do and all the shit we talk about. We're a very small part of the world. So the thing on climate change, anything we do in the U.S. isn't going to mean shit if China and India don't do their part. And that's just a fact.
What do you know? Did you hear through news reports and things what China's commitment at that climate Zoom meeting was in comparison to ours?
No, do you?
Yeah, they have committed that by I mean, this makes me laugh just to say it. They have committed that by 2035, they
are going to add 100 coal-powered power plants.
Their what's the right word? Their emissions will reach their peak by 2035. Yeah, they won't be reducing anything or doing. They commit that they will reach their peak by 2035. They won't go any higher than they'll be in 2035.
Right.
Between now and then, it's unlimited how high they could be. So,
and that's if they're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I just here's the thing. I just don't. I can't take any issue with the United States taking the correct positions on issues of this type. So I get that that's opposite. So Trump's plan was to get out of everything, undo everything like that. But to what end? For what purpose?
Well, I'm not sure I understand. Are you saying that this doesn't give the United States an excuse to not do its part?
Well, am I saying that? I mean, I think that Trump's getting out of the Paris Climate Accords and any number of other stupid positions that he took and things he reversed, the sole goal was to give us an out so that his big business buddies in the energy sector could just continue to just rape the environment and make as much money as possible at everybody else's expense. That was his motivation. He didn't do it for the good of the world or the good of the climate or for the good of the people. Those are strictly just giveaways to his cronies.
All right, well, so let's look at it now. In your opinion, should the American people step up and sacrifice or put themselves at a disadvantage economically or in any other position when we know other countries around the world aren't going to step up and do their part?
Well, I think we should strive to do our part whenever we can, regardless of that. I don't think that outlook or viewpoint should be taken into consideration at all. I don't think that. I guess I would not agree with the premise of that statement, right? So,
well, I guess the point is to follow up on your comment about China. So if you're the American president and you're saying, here's what we're going to commit to doing, and we're not the only nation, of course, but to me, the two biggest standouts are China and India. That's just a fact. They're developing nations, and I'm not surprised that China was honest about that, but it's probably higher, right? I mean, so they're certainly not willing to concede and do any more. But it actually might be worse than that. The peak might be later than 2035, and they might not be completely honest with any effort to scale that back.
We might not cut back our carbon emissions by 50% by 30 either.
And we've seen that, and that could go away with the change of an administration. We've seen that too.
But if we set no goals, or if we set wishy-washy, half-assed goals. That was my point about the space program. I mean,
I get it. I understand.
It's certainly possible that we wouldn't have achieved that had we not set the goal.
But how do you take the setting of the goal to accomplishment? In other words, if there was a device now that you could literally teleport instantly from here to Hawaii, and I'm not talking one of these wonky teleporters where if a fucking fly gets in there, you're going to turn into Brendlefly. But if you could teleport to Hawaii, you wouldn't get on a plane, right? Why would you do that?
Right.
So if that technology was here, you would take it. But it's not here. So how do we take a statement or goal setting from the American president to convince innovation to go any faster than it's capable of going? And that's just my point. Innovation is going to move at the pace that it can go, at the pace that people can think of how to do shit. I don't think that they're deliberately not bringing ideas to the world. Did the Wright brothers not develop, the airplane because they thought there's no financial incentive for us to do it, and until that time comes, we're going to hold out on these great plans of how to, prove aerodynamic lift? So, I guess here's the question to you. What is the connection between the goal setting and the doing and getting us to the end point?
I think, for that question, what's the connection between goal setting and accomplishment? I don't know. The question makes me think, or infers to me, or something that there should be a connection. I don't know that is quantifiable, right? The connection. I think it's in spirit, and it can only be looked at through past experiences. I think the development of flight, was part of a scientific evolution that happened on its own. I don't know if there was any. I'm not aware that there was any goal setting.
But that's kind of
the president.
Again, you said it much better than I could. So, technology that happened on its own, isn't that kind of what we're saying here now with, alternatives to power? If it evolves on its own, we all certainly would choose to use the clean energy. But it hasn't evolved on its own. So if we just simply say, this has to be done by 9 years from now, what are we going to do when that doesn't happen?
Do we have any examples of setting goals like that haven't happened? As far as I know.
Do you think it's going to happen in 9 years? Are we going to be able to reduce these numbers?
Well, here's the thing. By 2030, which is that 9-year mark, right, he's committing to reduce the carbon output of the United States by 50%. carbon emission output by 50%.
And because that can't be done, here's what I'm worried about. So let me just say it. Because that can't be done, or is, in my opinion, unlikely to be done through technology, it'll have to be mitigated by usage. So I worry about things like in California, where we say we're going to limit the amount of miles you can drive, and therefore you're going to have the same gas-powered vehicles, but you just aren't going to be able to drive as far, and that's going to completely crush the economy and businesses and everything else.
So let me think.
Or mileage for flights. You can only go to Hawaii, Mr. Watkins, every other year because of your carbon footprint and flying back and forth to the islands.
I think that part of this is that you help set public opinion on policy through these kind of commitments, right? And I don't think that the commitment itself makes it happen, right? I think that that's part of an overall policies and positions that enable technology to move forward. I mean, here's the thing: the science is pretty solid at this point. That if you don't have a carbon neutral situation by 2050, then you're too late. So if you're not going to get down,
but a lot of the alarmists have said we're already past that point of being too late.
I don't know about that. The only one I know that I've heard cited is, and this was in relationship to this 2030 proclamation for cutting it by half, is that by 50, I'll be long dead, so it doesn't matter to me. But by 2050, if we're not carbon neutral, where we're not actually, it doesn't mean we're not doing things that create carbon emissions. It means that we've developed technology or practices that neutralize the effect, right?
The amount of power that it takes to produce batteries that go into electric vehicles is offset by the reduced emissions in those electric vehicles.
Yeah, there's that. There's also carbon scrubbing right out of the atmosphere, right? That technology is already here. It's just a matter of scaling it up. And how does that make sense? Right now, because of certain technological restrictions, scaling up carbon scrubbing would probably take more carbon output to scale it up. But we have no idea what the technological advances are going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. It will be incredible. So I think you have to have some faith in and it's not just faith either. It's not like religious faith where you're just basing it on nothing. No offense to anybody that's religious out there. But I mean, we just have to look at how technology advances the pace, right? I mean, we already know that the technological advances over the last 100 years have been I don't know what the exact numbers are, but there's some figure multiple times the advances over the last 5,000 years. So,
I agree, and that would all seem logical that we would get there wherever the there is in rapid pace. But it's just my concern is the politics involved. Whether or not we end up having to mitigate these things based on political decisions and not based on the innovation that's there. And to your point about faith, what's in it for China? Why would they get on board? What's in it for India? I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, I mean, China is, they're burning coal. And they're taking the good coal, the more pure coal, out of South Africa to the point where the South Africans are left with the shitty coal that doesn't burn as hot or efficient, and the power goes out. And it's called load shedding, and it happens every day.
So they're taking it out of South Africa because they're selling it to them?
Yeah.
South Africa is selling the coal to China?
Yeah, basically the Chinese are the single largest investor in the African continent.
Am I supposed to get pissed at China for some stupid decision South Africa is making, though?
It's not, though. But see, that's the thing, and that's the point about places like China and India. They do what they have to do for survivability. And so these developing nations, and this is why I'm a fan of capitalism, to come out of poverty, capitalism has lifted them out of it. So the African continent, South Africa in particular, these are third world countries. And as my friends there reminded me, even in South Africa, they're more African than they are Western. with things like vaccine rollout and health and currency and all that shit. And so when you have places around the world, look at the Middle Eastern countries with oil. When you have something that you have as a natural resource that you can monetize, you immediately take advantage of it because you have no other way out of poverty. So, India, for example, same thing. Again, those two countries, China and India, with their pollution, I'm just saying, how are you going to tell them to slow down the pace that they've established for, moving their people out of poverty because it's good for the planet?
Well, part of this outlook, I think, is that Americans have already, we've already been plundering the natural resources and filling the atmosphere up with carbon waste products or whatever the hell you want to say for the last 150 years, and it's a little disingenuous now for people to say, well, if we have to cut back something that we do in America to reach some finite goals that are that have to be reached for the survivability of the world, that we're not willing to do it, or we're afraid to positively endorse those policies because we might have to sacrifice, but because we're not going to be able to guarantee that China or India won't do their share. I mean, we've already taken our share and their share and everybody's share. We've already taken it. But we're what are we, Travis? Are we a tenth of the world's population? And we so far to date we've used, what is it, 70% of the resources? I don't know. Whatever the numbers are, that's probably not right. But there's something like that. I've heard him quoted before.
Because if I have no idea if that's true, but if it is true, it's because we're 70% better than everybody. But here's the point.
The farther away we get from the Trump era, the more funny and less disturbing Trumpisms like that are. Somebody
said something on Twitter about, and maybe this is kind of a good transition. I was going to say, it's what you get people to get behind, how they get behind an idea and what they think they can do about it. But somebody posted with all the shit going on, what's one thing that unites us? What's one thing that we actually have in common? And you know what I said?
In America?
No, well, they didn't say that, and I didn't look at it through that lens. Okay. But what was a one-word answer?
What?
Laughter.
Okay.
Laughter. That's something, you see somebody, a stranger, I think a smile, laughter, everybody, you feel better about that. Now, we have talked about things that Democrats won't laugh at, of course. That's another story.
I was just about to, are you taking ecstasy or something when I'm not looking? What the hell is happening here?
Here's my point on this whole fucking thing is I just hate it when politicians, especially the Democrats, they virtue signal about all the things we should do. You, Mr. Watkins, if you don't drink out of this plastic straw today, you're going to save the world. And it's not that simple, and that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got all that. I guess my only comeback to that is, and so right back to the hey, cut by 50% by 2030. Does just saying that by Uncle Joe, does that make it happen? No, but that doesn't inhibit it from happening. It certainly encourages it to happen. We need it to happen. It should happen. I don't think that he has proposed any law that would compel anybody or create any penalties for it.
We'll see.
So I think it is simply a statement of intention by the U.S. president in a worldwide climate type of organization, and I think we should always be at the forefront of the positivity of that stuff. And as much as anything else, Travis, we need to reestablish, I mean, you're not going to like this because of your libertarian leanings, but it's important that we reestablish ourselves, the United States, as if not the leader, one of the main leaders for every good cause in the world. And that is the main thing that we sacrificed over the Trump era, was our leadership status. And I don't equate that with being the policeman of the world or having to put in military troops everywhere in the world or any of that stuff that I think many right-wing pundits might jump on as a reason why that's not good.
But we do that and call it by a different name.
Yeah,
sanctions. I mean that's the other tool in the tool chest.
Listen, if we don't assume the leadership roles on these type of subjects around the world, somebody else will. When we bow out of things like the climate accords and the Iran nuclear deal and different things, you create vacuums, and they're filled by China and India and Russia, and that's just not good politics. I'm sorry, that's not good.
I mean, I don't disagree with that.
Good foreign policy.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, we're supposed to be the strongest nation, and the U.S. president is always referred to as the leader of the free world, and I get all that.
He used to be.
Well, I mean, but leading by example.
I don't think anybody considers Trump the leader of the free world. At the end of his 4 years, and the 2 years before that of campaign or whatever, I think I don't think anybody on this planet considered him the leader of the free world.
I don't know if that's true,
except for the Trumpsters in the United States. But I don't think any other countries. I think we lost that position almost universally. You don't think so?
Well, I think certainly there was a major shift in the idea that what was one of the things Trump always said? It was America first, right?
I'm a genius. I'm a very stable genius.
Did he say that?
Yes.
I'm a stable genius. I know he said he was like the fittest guy ever.
I'm a very stable genius.
Stable.
Yeah.
If you have to say and quantify anything you're about to do as being stable, you're not fucking stable.
Well, gotcha. I agree.
But I think the thing, it shifted into what I always viewed it as, Trump would say America first could also be looked at as America alone, which I think is dangerous. And it's the fine line like you were talking about. How do you draw the line between kind of cohesiveness and nations working together and not crossing the line of policing the world, being the police of the world, like this climate thing. If China doesn't do their part, in 20, 30, 50 years from now, do you have nations around the world that will say, literally, we're gasping for our last breath of air unless you do this, and if you don't do this, we're going to do it for you? That could happen.
I mean, yeah, we don't know but it's not going to happen because that's not going to happen because Uncle Joe, set this goal here in 2021. That's just a goal that he's setting for, as an example to the rest of the world, right? So, I mean, I just think that we've had quite a while now of being hit over the head with how being on the right side of issues is the wrong way to go about it, and it's not
the political right.
That was wrong in the beginning, and it's wrong now, and just for all those people that think that Trump had the right idea about international policy, foreign policy, just guys, folks, people, just don't. I mean, you think Trump is smarter than Putin or Xi in China? These guys are heads and shoulders above Trump in every aspect, right? China is the long time thinking nation of the world. Putin is a trained KGB agent, right? I mean, Trump is a fucking blowhard from New York, and that's all he is. And he'll never be anything else, and he never was.
Right, but I think that the danger in that, not to take away anything that you just said, but the danger in that is to say that the opposite of that, which is Biden, is everything is correct and everything he's doing is right, and I don't see it that way. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I think there's, as usual, a middle ground. I mean, all of those things you said about Trump certainly I think are true, but I think it's also dangerous being the opposite of Trump. Which is everything he said is bad, and so we're going to be on the complete opposite side. Literally, the political left of that isn't the answer either. So,
well, I mean, I think when you in the long run, when you really examine the positions that Joe Biden and the current crop of Democrats are going to take on, especially international issues, you're going to find that they're not the polar opposite of the Trump. They are the middle ground. I mean,
let's hope so. Some of these,
yeah.
There's comments in the news just this week about some of the fucking leftist progressives are saying we're happy with some of the progress Biden has made, and that's their agenda, right?
Of course they
That's
are.
scary. He's supposed to be the unifier and the centrist. If the progressives are happy, we've got a problem.
I think the majority of people in the country right now are pretty happy with what he's doing. I mean, you don't have to put all your faith in the polls and different things like that, but
the polls are favorable for him, mostly
on
COVID, which is ridiculous.
But listen, he's gonna have a speech tonight. He's going to address the nation. He's going to put forth something called the American Families Act, and it's not going to go. It's not going to pass, but it's going to be another statement of ideals.
Is this back to the climate thing?
No. This is so the not State of the Nation address.
No, I know, but is the point? Hey, I'm going to set the bar way up here. I know what you're talking about,
right?
But then it's going to probably get negotiated down here. Is it the same idea? We're going to set these lofty goals.
It's $1 trillion over 10 years that will be paid for in 15 years by raising taxes on the richest Americans in the country, and it actually will be a whole combination of things, and it will involve tax increases, but not for the everyman, but just for the people that number one are making very large sums of money and have had their taxes cut for the better part of 4 years. He's going to propose changing a lot of that back, which
hopefully it doesn't pass.
That doesn't affect me. So
the capital gains idea is fucking retarded.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a matter of opinion. So
the financial experts who are more savvy than me say it's all dumb.
Well, I haven't heard any of them yet, so I'll take your word for that. But it's not. I mean, he's going to put this out there, and it's going to be a statement to the American people that things that affect
your government is here to solve all of your problems.
For a guy who's trying not to put words in my mouth,
I'm doing a good job.
Doing a good job. I think the point of this is to try to reestablish with the people of America, as opposed to the Republican donor class and the energy sector and the head of every corporation, that the current administration cares more about what people in this country need, what families need, what children need, than what his cohorts and cronies, Trump's cohorts and cronies, need. I mean, so for me, I think I would rather see all government be more concerned with families, children, and people than companies and their donor class and shit, right? I mean, I just think that, and I think you're going to find that there's a huge majority of people that want those to be the priorities. So yeah, it's not going to be the Republicans, the card-carrying Republicans. It's not going to be the Senate or the Republicans in the Congress. It's not going to be the Trumpsters or the what was the Hillary thing? What'd she call them? The deplorables. It's not going to be the deplorables there, because they're too stupid to understand that nothing Trump did helped them ever.
But I agree with your statement. Right. That the president and the government should be seen as caring more about the people than corporations. But there's a difference between caring about the people and assuming that the government is the only one that can provide solutions to the people.
Well, and be comforted, Travis, that by the fact that Biden has said that he's willing to negotiate some of the platforms in the American Families Act that he's.
Well, I think he has no choice, because I have been reading a lot I
even Democrats are
center Democrats are saying
they're going to push back on
because
it.
Believe it or not, there are some wealthy Democrats, which I don't know why anybody who has wealth, like a lot of people in politics, and there's a lot of Democrats too, but I've always made the point that say what you will about taxes. At the end of the day, and I hate that they use the phrase pay their fair share. And all the shit that I argue about, I'm not in these classes, but it's the point that matters to me. And it should matter to everybody. So to say that you should pay your fair share,
why should it matter to everybody?
Because it could happen to you. Anything that they're once they get their hooks in, it can happen.
You could get richer.
You could get richer, or you could be poorer. They could take from you.
The tax grab could come down to the everyman.
It can and it will, and it just will. I mean, think about that. Places like California.
This is the NRA position, right? It's a slippery slope. We have to stop. We can't.
We
can't let the evil Democrats.
That's exactly right. And you know as well as I do from our own experience in California government that you can't give them an inch because they will take a mile. And we've seen that. We've lived regulation that way. It's terrible. And so my point is this: to make the argument that rich people need to pay their fair share. You know what's not fair? I don't care how much money you make. It's never fair to give more than half of your money to your government. That's not fair. So whether it needs to be increased,
I don't think anybody's even close to 50%.
60%. It will be 60% in some areas combined.
For who? For what kind of people are we talking about?
The richest Americans.
Who's going to pay 60%?
The richest Americans will pay, and I say that this is based on what they always categorize as the richest, which I think goes down to $400,000 a year for families. They keep changing that figure. But you have places like California and New York that if all these tax proposals go through, you could pay up to 60%. That's bullshit. That's not fair.
So negotiate back to 10%.
Whatever the number is, I think it should be a cap.
If it's okay up to 50, then negotiate a cap at 50. But
49.9.
But it isn't 21. I can tell you
that.
Well,
that number you're referencing is the corporate tax rate, and of course we were at 35, but that's one element, right?
Yeah, but let me interject here, not to interrupt you, although I certainly am.
And I do it to you all the time, so go for it.
The truth of it is that the individuals that you're trying to protect here as a group typically don't pay any taxes.
That's not true.
Of course it is.
No, it's not. Here's the bottom line. So the corporate tax rate.
How much tax did Bezos pay?
Personal tax?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, none.
That's not true.
Well, here's the thing. There's
that point that you just made is coming from the reform.
They're going to close off loopholes like capital gains and different things.
Yes, so let's clarify that. Well, the point that you just made is an often quoted narrative that Amazon, not Jeff Bezos, but Amazon didn't pay any federal income tax. The corporation Amazon.
I get that that's probably not true.
Maybe it is true.
But the point is that those people that you're trying to protect. So your statements in the last few minutes lead me to believe that you think it's okay for rich people to pay up to 50%. But after that, that's not right. I could probably easily live with that assessment of what's moral or immoral about taxation. But I don't think that the vast majority of the people you're talking about are paying anywhere close to 50% now. So why don't you speak to that instead of my more ridiculous statement that they're paying nothing?
And maybe that's true.
Am I off base? Am I misinterpreting how you're looking at that?
I think it can be a lot confusing and misleading when you look at where taxes are paid. So let me get into the weeds a little bit. Mm-hmm. The corporate tax rate is the big one that is often in the news because that was the big mover from 35% down to 21%. Mm-hmm. And the argument is, did it need to go down? Did it need to go down that far? And where ultimately will it be settled back up? That is the corporate tax rate. So when you own a business, for the most part, just for simplicity, you can set up your corporate structure as either a C Corp or an S Corp, and it has to do with taxation. So a C Corp, the entity itself pays the tax. Then you as the owner or owners receive wages in the form of W-2s, and you pay income tax on that. And then your corporation also pays a separate tax based on the tax bracket that we just talked about. Mm-hmm. S Corps are pass-through taxation. So for round numbers, if you made $50,000 a year in salary running your business, and at the end of the year your business also showed $50,000 in net income, you would claim $100,000 of income. So you received 50, You paid tax in W-2 on your W-2 wages on that 50. At the end of the year, you're going to claim another 50 that you didn't see income on and pay tax on that based on your adjusted tax bracket. So whatever you are, 18, 25, 30%. And so at the end of the year, most businesses in that scenario have to write themselves a check to cover the tax because it's all passed through taxation.
In which type of corporation gives you superior protection? I mean, that's why you have a corporation for the most part, is to protect yourself.
On the liability side, I think the protection is the same, and it varies by state. But as far as shielding your personal assets from liabilities or lawsuits, the shielding is the same, whether you're an S corp or a C.
So then, how do you base the decision of which kind of corporation to be?
It's a personal decision based on a lot of factors: your tax planning, the number of shareholders, the type of shareholders. For example, a lot of this is driven by large businesses, public companies, and the type of ownership. So a corporation cannot own shares in an S corporation in a single business. So a corporation can't own stock and then an individual owns stock. You have to change the whole thing to a C corp. So the corporation is paying and reporting taxes.
Okay.
So go all the way back to this Amazon thing.
Well, can I set up a ladder and climb up out of the weeds for 1
Sure,
second?
yes.
I got lost one.
I get it. I know.
I'm sure some of our listeners followed that, but not me. But so I guess the question is, so if you're a CEO of a corporation and you're making $35 million a year as compensation, is that which type of corporation is that most likely to be?
It's different. And I have to go back down the ladder for a second to just address that point.
Okay.
This is the classic Warren Buffett example. So the type of compensation has nothing to do with the structure. So the tax structure of S and C, that just determines who pays the tax, the individual or the corporation.
Okay.
The compensation is different. Warren Buffett, he's often cited as saying he pays a lower tax rate than his secretary.
Yeah.
And how does he figure that? He draws $100,000 a year in salary. That's W-2 wages. His secretary, whatever, let's say she makes $50,000 a year in W-2 wages. So she's paying probably 22% combined tax. I don't know where she lives. The rest of Warren Buffett's money, say $35 million, is paid for in dividends. Okay, that's taxed at a lower rate. That's the thing that Biden is addressing. So your W-2 tax bracket is based on the amount.
So that should be changed, right?
Well, that's what he's proposing.
Right.
So right now, that number varies too, based on.
I think we got to the nut of it, right? So here's how I understand what Biden's going to be proposing without actually understanding all the details. The goal here for this administration is to close many of the loopholes of the type that you just described very adeptly, that someone like a Warren Buffett, who really is seeing, and I don't know if he sees, what his compensation is, but
I think it's more than that.
I would assume that for the mythical CEO that I referenced, that is going to be, whose compensation from the company that he works for, from the corporation, is going to be $35 million. The newest number on that's 320 times what the average worker in that company gets paid. I get your opinion about that. But having said that, he won't pay anywhere close to the same amount of tax in relationship to that. So if that's 320 times, back it off, I assume that means the average worker is making $40,000 or $50,000 a year and is paying 22 or 23%. He isn't going to pay 23% of $35 million or anything close to that. So I think the goal here,
he might.
The goal, but not likely, right? Because
it is likely.
That's not likely how it put. Well, I mean. So then
it's closer to that number, let's just say, than what he wants it to be, because the capital gains taxes, and it varies by income.
Well, you just said it would be okay if that guy paid $17 million a year in taxes.
What I said was okay is if he makes 300 times more than the average worker.
No. Go back. You said that anything up to 50% nobody should pay more than 50%.
First of all, I wasn't
their income.
I did say that. I wasn't advocating that they pay up to 50. I said at no time should you pay more than 50.
But that's I get that, but But I mean, and I'm not trying to twist your words. Yes, I am. But I mean, if your income through whatever source is $35 million, and you're saying that, hey, nobody should pay more than 50, then it should be okay for that guy to pay 17 million. And I guarantee you that a CEO making $35 million a year is not paying $17 million
And you know why that is? Because some of that money, a lot of that money for these big CEO positions that you're referring to and that are all over the media, it's not real money. It's stock options. So at the end of the year, you know, there's still a lot of zeros in those compensation packages, but the largest sum is stock options. So if you make $35 million a year, $5 million is in actual money that hits your bank account and 30 is in stock. Should you be taxed on money you didn't realize? How are you going to pay the tax bill?
Is it wealth?
Well, that's a whole other issue, right? It's unrealized gains. Where are you going to get the money to pay it?
Okay, so good point.
So that's the problem with it, you know, and the real problem is when you have companies like the Amazons, and I think this is a true statement.
Well, wait a minute. If you get paid, if the majority of your $35 million compensation package is stock, then shouldn't it be changed so that you get so let's say 30 million of that is stock options, then shouldn't and if we're saying that, hey, you should pay, it's okay to pay half of the total value of your compensation in taxes, then wouldn't half of that stock have to be converted, sold, or somehow cashed out as a matter of law?
It's not, though.
But these are, just because something isn't a certain way doesn't mean that it,
I agree.
It
I understand.
Changed. So I'm trying to think what they're really saying here, because it's
what they're saying is this.
If you sat down with the Biden administration and made that point with them, you can make that point with me, because I don't really know much about this, but I guarantee you they've already thought through that, and the answer is going to be that, well, when CEOs get that kind of compensation package from large corporations, the corporation is going to have to liquidate half of that compensation into real money and then pay the taxes with it.
Here's why that's wrong, and here's why they won't do it. Because they don't care. To them, it's punitive. The rich man needs to be punished for his success and taking advantage of the everyman. That's honestly how they look at it. It's not about they need the tax. You know, they haven't mathematically figured out, when we raise this, here's how much more tax we're going to get, and therefore it's going to solve all of our financial problems. It's simply punitive. That's how they look at it.
Well, I don't think I agree with that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I necessarily. I don't know that there's a real factual basis.
But
here's
the other
assumption.
problem with stock. You know what another word for stock is?
Yeah.
Equity. What? Equity. And what happens with equity? It goes up and it goes down. So let's say I pay you every year.
Realize it.
Right, but it also equity when you realize it.
At the moment, I'm moving away from the mic. At the moment it's issued, it's worth what it's worth. And so if we're saying, hey, this mythical CEO is getting $35 million of it's in stock options. At the moment it's issued, it's worth $30 million.
And then tomorrow, when the stock crashes, it's worth half.
Yeah, but if you're worried that, but it also could double up.
It could,
right? So
that's what investment is all about.
All right,
risk.
So $17 million in stock today goes to the CEO, which he rightfully earned, and the other $17 million is liquidated and turned into $17 million cash and paid to.
But when you say liquidated,
paid to the government,
yes,
right, as to cover the tax bill, then that tax bill's paid, and that's it. Yes, there's some risk for him that stock might go up or go down, but the next day or that day, he also has the option to cash that stock out.
Would you be in favor? Let's say I'm going to pay you,
or he can keep it and maybe double it.
You could, right? But that's his decision to make. It's not the government's to make for him.
No, but the fact is that it could be done.
But you say that. Think about this, though. You're assuming that these corporations have the liquidity to convert that stock into cash.
If it's not $35 million in value, then stop saying it is.
Well, I mean, here's how that works, and we've talked about this too, right?
Pay the guy
stock.
Pay the guy $10 million and make him pay $5 million of it in taxes.
Well, listen,
that's not happening.
At the end of the day, you've got to report all of your income and the various sources, and that's how you pay tax. But when you treat stocks the same as income and you want to tax it as such, that's what changes the scenario. So here's what I was going to say. Let's say we pay you in part, you draw a salary, and then we pay you every year you get a house. A house that's paid for, free and clear. So it's worth, in Southern California these days, $700,000, $1 million. You got to pay tax on that. It's a house that's sitting there, made out of wood, stucco. It's worth $1 million. You've got to give me $500,000. You don't have it in the bank.
Right.
You have it in equity. You have to sell it now or take out a loan to give me the tax money and then carry the note. That's not right.
Well, I mean, maybe it's right. I mean, the thing is if you as a big corporation have an excess amount of houses,
what's excess
at your disposal? Well, you have enough.
Who gets to decide how many houses I should own?
Not excess. All right. Well, I think that for me, this is a fascinating conversation, but I'm pretty sure the listeners are dropping off like flies.
Well, listen, what am I doing here? I'm being devil's advocate like I like to do.
It's good.
But you see how the fucking left and the idiots who just think everything's free can get behind an argument like this because the wealthy, that's right, they're the reason I'm not making it in the world because they're taking away these opportunities. And by the way, if they pay all this tax money, guess what? It's not going to trickle down into your pocket. You're not going to make that more because they took it from the wealthy. It's not how it works.
Yeah. I will tell you, Travis, if I was, and I'm not, if I was a young person, I would not like you very much.
They don't. Most people don't.
Yeah, because here's the thing. You are advocating protections for the class of business and the class of person in this country that doesn't need your fucking protection.
What I'm advocating for is the protection of opportunity, the protection of personal property. And like I've said to you before, shouldn't we have a system and a belief to move everybody up rather than bringing everybody down? Don't we want to move the bar up? Don't you want to tell a young person, you too can start an Amazon one day and be a billionaire, rather than saying billionaires can't exist because the government's going to take their wealth? What message do you want to hear?
Yeah, I mean, valid point, but I think that when I say that the young people in this country, this side of the thinking is just bending over backwards and killing themselves to protect corporations and the super rich and the 1%, and never let them fail, right? And because you never make them pay an equitable amount. I know you don't like the term fair share, so let me just phrase it a different way. Maybe I can disguise it and slip it through.
You can't.
An equitable amount of taxation that goes, and once they're doing that, and then if their company can't succeed, then let them fail. You know how opportunity for young people are created in this country when large monopolistic companies break up and fail. Who's failed in recent memory of any substance?
Well,
right?
I think that's another element. And I'm not saying this, I'm not an advocate for bailouts. So if a company can't survive on their own, if they're too greedy, if they're too monopolistic, if they take advantage in a way that ultimately ends in their demise, I'm okay with that. I really am. Well, I'm not okay when the government steals from them.
What is the yardstick then to measure that in your mind?
Less government. Get out of the way.
No. I didn't say what you think the cure is.
Oh.
What do you think the yardstick is that we measure when a corporation is too greedy?
I don't think if you're going to be objective and use the word measurement, you can use the word greed. That's subjective. But I'll give you an example because I think this is maybe what you were asking.
Well, wait a minute. You just said that when a corporation is too greedy, that's not right. So
I said if that greed results in their demise, I'm okay with that. What I'm saying is if a company fails, let them fail. I'm okay with not protect. I don't want to be seen because this is not what I'm saying.
How do you measure that? I mean, when it comes down to Amazon failing.
I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
Oh, so here's really maybe, again, because I'm a solutionary. I know you're doing okay in time. I know you have to get your shot today.
I'm okay. I'm good. Solutionary. Are you the decider?
I wish I was.
Okay, but you're the solutionary. Go ahead.
You're a solutionary too.
Yes.
As much as you're a grumpy old man, you want to be part of the solution.
I do.
And that is, we can't sit here and argue about what we have in front of us if we don't offer solutions. And I've always said this about, relationships with people in business or whatever. You don't have a right to complain unless you offer me a solution. So we really are solutionaries.
Let me know when you want my solutions, and I'll run them out. But go ahead, because I have some.
So here's an example. I don't think. Again, I want to make sure I drive this point home. I'm not saying we should protect the wealthy, protect businesses at all costs, that we bail them out because we have to preserve that class at the expense of another class. I'm not saying that at all. The opposite, of course, isn't true either, that government needs to solve these problems and take their money. But I'll give you an example, because this is often cited, which is how we got on this conversation. A company like Amazon not paying tax. What I could maybe get behind, and when I say maybe is let the economists figure this out, the actual people who understand money, is maybe there should be some type of minimum tax. I'm a big believer in what I think is fair share, which I hate the phrase when it's referred to with taxation because it's not fair at all. But if you're going to look at it through that lens, what I think is fair is that everybody pays something. So it's certainly, I get it why people are pissed off when Amazon is are they trillion now? I don't even know.
No.
Are they billion dollar,
yeah.
Right? Multi-billion. And it's reported they didn't pay any federal income tax. And let's take that for face value if it's true. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have something that says you have to pay a minimum tax regardless. Because it's not as if they have deficits, right? It's not as if their bank account is zero. The reason they didn't pay the tax is because they took advantage of, you like to say, loopholes. It's not anything illegal. It's expenses and deductions and pull through and step up and all that shit that shows on paper they took losses. Whether or not you buy capital expenditures this year, you write it off and you depreciate it later. At the end of the day, that's what they've done. But they've made billions of dollars in net income.
Let me ask I don't want to stop your train, but who put those methods in place?
I don't know. This is
Is it not the
it's not new.
Not the government?
No, it is. It is the
not
government.
the government tax
Code,
law,
yes.
code, whatever?
And it's not new.
So if the government put in let's not call them loopholes. I don't mean that as an epithet, but I guess it is derogatory.
Well, it makes it sound like they're doing something shady.
If the government put in methods to allow a company like Amazon to pay virtually nothing in taxes compared to the amount of money that they're obviously making for their shareholders and so forth, then why would it not be government changes to those codes would not be part of the answer if we feel that that's not equitable?
I agree. That's the only solution, right? It has to come from government. But the current proposals aren't correct. And so what I'm saying is this. The knee-jerk reaction is that we need to punish them to pay their fair share, to pay more. We need to do it through the shareholders. We need to do it through capital gains. But here's what I think.
I think you see it as punishment. I don't think the average person number one was specifically when you're talking about Amazon. I mean, maybe when you're talking, I'm trying to think of a company. I mean, probably any oil company, or probably. I'm starting to want to punish AT&T because they're so fucked up. But you
just got to pay your bill, dude.
I don't think that average Joe or poor average Joe or anybody is really looking to punish Amazon. But I just don't think that's the outlook. I think that's the way the people on the right, let's just make a general, let's say everybody that's not Democrat, look at Democratic proposals to try to address some of these issues as punishment. I don't think the people making those proposals see it as punishment.
Of course they don't.
That's part of the disconnect. Well, I mean, the fact that
your ruler who punishes you isn't going to say they're punishing you. This is for you, for your benefit. You need this.
Yeah, but you. Okay, go on. I mean, you probably lost your train of thought, but you're not as old as I am, so keep going.
No, I was going to finish, and I was just going to say that, maybe the solution is that you can't ever report zero, right? And that's the whole issue. They made money. There was money that ended up in their bank account. They just didn't pay any federal tax because of whatever they were able to deduct and write off. But maybe the answer is there should be some type of minimum. And there has been discussion about that. I don't think it's taken any traction.
Well, let's take the discussion up a notch then. Let's say that, first off, let's see if there's a couple of things we can agree on. The average person that maybe is part of, okay, poor people probably don't pay any tax, right?
That's right.
They don't pay any tax.
Which they should.
Right, except for the sales tax and other things that they end up paying, and fees and things that are actually taxes.
Consumption.
Right. Yeah, so then that brings us, I guess, to the middle class, right? Lower, middle, and upper middle class. And I think everybody would agree that we are paying enough tax, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now you go above that class, and let's just lump everybody that's not in the upper middle class. So I don't know what that number is. Let's call it $400,000 a year. I will tell you that if you're making $400,000, I understand where $400,000 a year can go for a family of four or something like that. So I get that you can still be middle class. If you're making a $10,000 mortgage payment and
so many people pay for houses in Silicon Valley. It's crazy.
$20,000 in property taxes in California. I get all that, but even then, that's a lot of money. But let's call that the upper middle class, and then we go everybody that makes more than $400,000 up to millions, or does anybody make billions? I doubt it. I think, but they may be.
Yeah, billionaires don't make billions.
Yeah, they don't make
income.
billions of dollars. But so then you go from everything from $500,000 to millions, right? And that's the class that I think everybody agrees is not paying the fair share of taxes.
But here's how I would.
And so we need to fix that.
Well,
isn't
do we
this
though?
Conversation that simple?
No.
Well, listen, I get it, but we are faced with things that need to be done in the country for the good of the country, for the long-term good, for the good of and now I am going to pull the child card, for the good of your children and their future, not mine. My future is pretty well set. Even the worst.
You're killing turtles with your plastic straws.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm good.
I get what your priorities are.
But if the answer, if we can define the problem like that, and where the money, there's only certain places the money can come from, and we need things. You're going to hear about things tonight in Biden's address.
I'm not, because I'm not going to listen to it.
Well, I hear about it, but you're going to hear about it after.
I will hear about it after.
And you're going to hear about things that everybody is going to agree are needed, right? And they're not going to be. He's not going to talk about how people that make $500,000 and up, how they need more money for more $300,000 cars. They're not.
I get
you're not
that.
going to hear that. You're going to hear about how every child in this country should be able to go to preschool, about how every person in this country should have equitable health care, and how and other things that you're also have already heard about, and some of the money's already been appropriated, or I think we're still negotiating it. We need roads. We need, it's not right that in this country that any cities.
Why do we need roads when we're going to teleport?
that any cities. Good shot at throwing me off the game. Doesn't take much. It's not right that in this country there is anybody without health care. It's not right in this country that there are municipal water supplies that are full of lead, right? And in all of these inequities, and that if there's a national health crisis, whatever it is, whether it's a global pandemic or something else,
something that's actually real, not like COVID,
something that's actually real, that we now know that the impact of that crisis is going to fall.
Is there enough?
Is going to fall on the people that can least afford it.
Is there enough tax money to do all those things? Everything that you just described sounds great and is, for the most part, real problems. Can you raise enough tax money to do all that shit, though? Is there enough money to... all the money in the world, would it pay for free health care, get the lead out of the water, free school, free everything? That's called government ownership of private property. I think that's called Is it communism?
Well, on that, I think that we have eloquently illustrated both sides of this discussion, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that's perfect because those kind of are the two extremes. I'm very happy with the way I tried to break down that's my side of this discussion. And I'd like to think about the things that I mentioned, and there's plenty of other stuff I didn't mention.
Listen.
And the valid question that you posed, is there enough money in the fucking world to do that? I think the answer is certainly yes. And I will tell you this, and then I'll shut up and let you respond. But if you could show that more equitable taxes, more equitable contributions by people that have the most of the most in this country would not go a long way toward making those problems better. If you can show that that's not the case, fine. I'd like to see the evidence. But apparently, when you look at the way the wealth in the country is currently sitting, right, and the continuation of the inequity, how fast it's grown just over this last year, there's some scary shit going on there. And I think the numbers say that the money is there. It's just locked up in the 1%.
Well, I think there is another piece of this funding. I don't know if you're going to hear about it tonight. Is it 80 million or 80 billion? It can't be million. Maybe it's billion.
Everything's billions.
Okay,
now.
80 billion, but there's a massive amount of funding that's going to...
See, we're talking in billions, like 80, 100, 500 billion. And then we're starting to use terms like trillion, right?
No, I know.
The COVID relief was 1.9 trillion, and then the infrastructure
Isn't that disgusting?
2 trillion.
Relief for something
right?
that didn't have to happen.
So, I mean...
I digress.
Well, the amounts now, when we're talking trillions, we're in the single digits. I haven't heard anything that's 10 trillion, except, I don't know, maybe this thing that Biden's going to propose tonight might be $10 trillion over 15 years. So get ready.
So look this up, too, because here's an important part of this particular puzzle is there's some figure, let's call it 80 billion, that is being proposed to be sent to the IRS for the sole purpose of giving them more money, more funding, we're familiar with this model, to go out and find people, the wealthy, who are not paying their tax. And they've released what the estimate is that they believe in tax money that is owed to the U.S. government that they're not receiving. Is it at $700 billion?
It is. It's $750 billion in uncollected taxes from people that legitimately owe the taxes.
At the current rates.
At the current rates.
So maybe that's the solution. Get the money that's...
Well,
get your 120 and your 90 days down and get your receivables collected.
$750 or $790 billion is a lot of money, and get your receivables down. I think you have me at receivables. So, for those of you that know me, you'll know why that means something to me. But every problem every national problem, important problem that we're facing. The solutions are in the trillions, not the billions.
Yeah, but I mean, I think my point to all of that is you said something about the amount of money coming in to know whether or not I can pay for everything, and I just don't believe that you can. And I think when you look at wealth and how the wealth is passed down from generation to generation, I don't want a government that dissolves that because government confiscated it. I think America has to look ourselves in the eye and decide whether or not we believe certain things that are granted to us, least of which is private property.
Well, I think that the accumulation of familial wealth is of zero importance to me. I understand that. I think that in this world, in this modern age, and what we're seeing, because that's unbridled now, right? There's no way to stop the accumulation of wealth.
Why should you stop it?
Because it's not good for the country. So I mean,
but it's a guaranteed right to private property.
Yeah, well,
and I know we're running out of time because you have to get out of here. But
I'm totally good. But we might be running out of time anyway. Running out of time anyway. I think that's worth thinking about. Look, somebody show me the evidence that we can't pay for this stuff if we get.
Well, we certainly can now. Because that's the other point I was going to make is we don't even need taxes anymore because we can just print money.
Well,
we can live on deficits. So
if
why?
that's true, then just do it.
Right. I agree. Let's just do it and let's not tax anybody. Let us keep our money and print free phantom money.
I think if that was an equitable solution, then that would be what would be proposed tonight, rather than raising taxes and closing loopholes on the rich.
And you hear this?
How that's going to look. Three things: they're going to raise taxes. They're going to close loopholes. They're going to fund the IRS with $80 billion so they can collect $790 billion. Those are the three solutions to the payment they're going to make. And
that should scare the hell out of everybody because your government is coming for you. They don't want you to be successful. They want to punish you because you've made it and they haven't, and you need to be punished. And you know what's going to happen? The wealthy are going to leave. You know, we've seen mass migration.
When they leave, you punish them, and when
they leave, you punish them.
Yeah.
An exit tax?
Yep.
Oh my God! Do you really believe in that?
I think it's a good idea.
Oh Jesus Christ!
I think if you accumulated your wealth on our backs, and you want to take it out of the country, then fuck you.
Well, what about not country? Just leaving other states to other states.
Well, I don't care about that.
Well, places like California talk about an exit tax with a 10-year tail.
I'm not talking about state-to-state exit tax. Although, if you made the money on the backs of California consumers, and now you want to take the wealth that your company has accumulated out of the state because you don't want to pay your fair share to handle the issues that need to be handled in this state, then, again, fuck you.
But didn't you already pay it? Let's say you lived and worked in a place for 20 years. You paid every year all along the way, and you've accumulated your wealth. You should be punished again.
We're not talking about you moving. We're talking about...
I'm going to Puerto Rico now.
We're talking about Amazon moving, not you.
Yeah, but I'm a small example of what other people are going to have to think about if they're going to be punished for success.
Stop trying to scare...
It's not scare. People have to look themselves in the mirror.
And the people that I'm talking about will know who they are. Stop trying to scare the Trumpers and all the rest of these people with this stuff about how nobody in the Democratic Party is coming for these low-level white supremacists in the South.
It's not about
nobody. They don't have any money.
Listen,
they're going. This is not
your
about
teeth,
them.
your wooden teeth. If the guy in the South, he's poor, he doesn't have any money, and he comes up, he finds the perfect piece of hickory, and he finds.
Just a disclaimer: my teeth implants will not be made out of wood. I mean, I think we've done a good job of convincing a large swath of our listeners that my implants are made of wood.
Okay, the South. You heard of these Duck Dynasty guys?
Yeah.
They make what? Duck collars? Like a...
they do something.
A duck calling device, right? A sound for hunting.
They make money doing something. I don't know what it is. I never watched that show.
I don't know if they have a patent on this thing. I mean, they literally are, these poor, toothless Southerners who are on the porch whittling a piece of wood, and they make it into a duck machine that calls ducks.
And I'm the one that doesn't like the South.
And they become wealthy. So it can happen. It's not just the big corporations. You can come up with an idea that nobody else thought of and everybody wants, and you can sell it and you can be rich until your government takes from you.
You can do that and still pay your fair share. I mean, you mentioned earlier rich Democrats. What I found is that rich Democrats typically understand and are willing to pay their fair share of taxes.
Well, we'll see if they change the narrative on what fair is.
Well, when they contribute to the Democratic Party, which they do, in large numbers, which I would stop, right? I would stop wealthy Democrats from financing political campaigns the same way I would stop rich Republicans and if there's such a thing as a big successful corporation or PACs that started by corporations or a business sector like the energy sector or something, I would pull all that money out of politics and take it all out. It should just all come from us. It should come from the people that cast the vote. It should be limited.
You mean people who actually want to contribute their money? These campaign budgets, by the way, if that happened, would be nil.
It's okay. If they're all nil, then it's fine. Then,
I agree.
I mean, frankly, we don't learn anything, right? I mean, Trump He didn't use his own money to pay for his campaign to become president. That was the first and foremost lie that he made during the campaign. And if he, but he got day in and day out coverage by the media, right? Did we pay a price for him getting that coverage? We probably have. But I guess what the point I'm trying to make is you don't need millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to run campaigns.
Yeah, you just need Twitter, which you can't be on Twitter and say things if you're Trump or a Trump.
You don't even need Twitter. You just need to get on television. And if nobody can buy ads to flood an ad market with commercials, then everybody has to make the effort to regionally get on television screens and make their case to the American people. That's all. That is a tide that will level out everything. So, and that's one of the first things we can do. You can take all the money that's being sent. I think probably, Travis, to be honest with you, if you take all the money that's being contributed to finance campaigns
pay for the goddamn roads,
but you could probably solve quite a few of these problems that you're going to hear about from Biden tonight. So, I mean, that money alone might fix the problem. So, I think there's plenty of money. But this has been a great discussion. Just for the record, this is one of my favorite discussions we've ever had.
Well, that's good because we didn't even talk about what I wanted to talk to you about. But as usual, we'll get into it another time.
Save it for next week.
But it was a great conversation. Okay. And so, leave us with this. You're going to get your second COVID shot today.
I am, right now.
Pfizer or Moderna?
Moderna.
Okay.
Moderna.
What are we hearing? Is the second shot on that one, we're expecting side effects? Are you driving yourself? What do we think?
Well, I am driving myself because my chauffeur's off today.
Right.
So, speaking of
you had to make some cuts because your taxes went up.
Speaking of taxing the rich, yeah, that's the first thing I've done to pay my fair shares. I got rid of my chauffeur and my maid. So got rid of those two. Not as many servants around the house as we. I do have a few around. I mean, there's gardeners, there's pool guys. There's shit like that.
And you're still doing all right.
Yeah, I'm still doing all right. I am going to go get to Moderna, and then that's it. I'm going to call in sick for the next 3 days.
Well,
whether I am or not, because that's,
why not?
Because everybody else.
That's the thing.
Everybody else that gets it. So.
Well, do check in with me this evening. I will not be watching Biden, but I want to hear how you're doing just from your shot alone.
I will check in with you,
and
it's going to be fine. Debbie's getting it today too. In fact, she's already got hers, so an hour ago. So. We'll see. I mean, because if you know what this happy wife, happy life.
Exactly.
So if she's not feeling good, then I'm not going to be feeling good.
We're doing the same. We have our second shot scheduled. I thought
you already had yours.
No, we had the first.
Okay.
Both had the first. We have our second shot scheduled on the 6th of May, but we're going in at the same time. So.
Oh, that's good. Where doctors, CVS?
No, it's at a hospital in Long Beach.
Is it?
Yeah.
I wish I was. I mean, I think in a couple of days you're going to be able to go to any drugstore and just walk in and get it. I mean, I'm going to go to the fucking Anaheim Convention Center. I mean, I'm going to get my steps in because from where you park to where you go get the shot is a fair hike. They utilized, at least when I was there a month ago, they utilized the entire facility, just about every single part of it. So it's pretty crazy. So I'll let you know how it's doing. All right?
All right, my friend.
All right,
to everybody,
thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.